As many of you know, I work in aviation, and while aircraft are incredibly expensive, it's not the purchase price that will get you. It's the cost of operation. Now, this is something that can be true in firearms too, and that's something many shooters, including myself, tend to forget when buying or building a rifle. I had an idea I want to bounce off you guys, but first a little bit of background. I recently took a field carbine course here in Arizona with Independence Training, which was great. I could definitely recommend those guys. Now, the course involves shooting from 100 to 450 yards in field positions. And while I learned a great deal, the takeaway that's pertinent to this discussion was that my 55 grain plinking ammo that I've been loading and shooting is not up to the task. Now, this load is cheap and fast to produce and has proved perfectly adequate out to 200 or 300 yards, but after that it really drops off. And it opens up the groups in a manner less predictable than that with 69 to 77 grain loads. A part of that is the projectile itself. It has a pretty poor ballistic coefficient, so while it starts out fast, it slows down rapidly. Part of it is also the way I load them. I load a production style on my old Lee turret press here. So the charge is being metered volumetrically, and the seating depth and charge weight is only checked in batches. Now, I built this rifle a little over 4.5 years ago with the thought of having a rifle that would take me from contact to 600 yards for general use and for competition. Now, this really plays to my strengths as I tend to be more accurate than I am fast. I equipped this rifle with a heavy profile barrel and a variable power 1:4 scope to help me reach out. And with the right ammo, it's accomplished those goals. Now, if I were to build this rifle today, there are probably a few things I'd do differently, but that's a topic for another video. Now, the downside to this rifle is its weight. As equipped with the sling and the scope and everything, it's coming in at a hefty 9+ pounds and is a little front heavy. And that definitely slows me down in competition on close-up targets or in target transitions. So here's the dilemma. I'm paying for 600-yard accuracy by hauling around a 9+ pound rifle, but I'm then negating that 600-yard capability by feeding it ammo that's not up to the task. On the other hand, 2,000+ rounds of match ammo per year presents either time or financial strain. And switching back and forth between both ammos with significantly different zero in a match environment is much less than optimal. I'd much rather set the rifle up for one ammo and run with it for all my competition and related practice. Now, as I thought about this, I began trolling the usual sites for component costs, and I discovered that if you buy it in large enough quantities, the Hornady Boattail Hollow Point Match 75 grain can really be had quite cheap, just 4 or 5 cents more than the 55 grain plinkers I normally buy. Now, when I do match ammo, I take a lot of care to make sure everything's just right and spend a great deal of time on it. Too much time for large volume production. But what if I took a match projectile, match components, and put them together production style, and selected my components to work with that style of production? Would I end up with something that can shoot minute of man to 600 yards, something between plinkers and match ammo, or would I just be wasting money on more expensive plinkers? Well, that's what I set to find out. So for components, the projectile was already decided on. The Hornady 75 grain Boattail Hollow Point Match has shot very well in this rifle in match loads, and as I mentioned before, can be had quite cheaply if bought in large enough quantities. For the brass, rather than use brass sorted and tracked in lots, I just used brass that was sorted by head stamp. Nothing special really. For the powder, that took a little more thought. I need something that meters very consistently since I'm not going to be weighing each charge. I also need something here in Arizona that is relatively temperature insensitive, and of course it can't cost too much. So after a little research and a couple of false starts, I settled on CFE 223. Now, this is relatively temperature insensitive, it's relatively cheap and available, and having a very fine grain spherical shape, it should meter very well. Now to test this, I loaded up 50 rounds using my Lee turret press just like I would in production, throwing volumetric charges. The only difference is I stopped to dump each charge onto the scale, weigh it, and then right back into the case without altering it all. Well, this old Lee turret press threw 50 charges, all of them within 1/10 grain, which is really as much as I can ask for. Now, after a preliminary workup, I settled on a somewhat moderate charge because it was producing single-digit SDs over the Crony, even with the volumetric throw, and was producing just under 1 MOA groups at 100 yards. So that's a pretty good start. Now, I haven't tested these at distance yet, but I've loaded up another 50 for that purpose, and I'll let you know. Now, the plinkers I've been using cost me around 21 cents a round and are pretty quick to make, where these are going to cost me about 26, 27 cents a round. However, using just about the same process, they are not going to take me any more time. So what do you think of the concept of a more production-style, semi-match kind of ammo? Does the idea have merit, or am I just wasting time and money making more expensive plinkers? And could I have chosen better components? Let me know what you think. This is very much a work in progress, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. So here's the dilemma. It is the dilemma.